From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, July 16th. Board to reconvene. The first item is roll call.
Supervisor Gleason?
Here.
Supervisor Scribner?
Here.
Supervisor Maggard?
Here.
Supervisor Couch?
Here.
Supervisor Perez?
Here.
Next item is the flag salute. It will be led today by Supervisor Maggard, and please remain standing at the conclusion of that for a moment of prayer, silence, and meditation, whichever you prefer.
Please salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda. All the items listed with a CA or a C above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. We can act on those all in one motion. If there's any of you that would like to have any of those items removed for separate consideration, you can request that. It'll take a member of the board to do that, or you can make a comment about those, but now's the time to do that. Let me tell you what's on the consent agenda. It starts on page 2, consists of items 2 through 6 and item 9. Page 3, items 11 through 17. Page 4, all the items 18 through 25. Page 5, items 26 through 29 and 31 and 32. Page 6, all the items 33 through 40. And page 7, items 41 and 42. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment about any of those items I just read off that comprise the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll return to the board for a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. It takes us back to page 2, item 1, which is under the resolutions and proclamations portion of the meeting. It's an item to proclaim July 2019 as Purple Ribbon Month in Kern County in acknowledgement of Caitlin's Law. And this item will be presented by Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion on proclamation.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have quite a group behind me. I'm going to make the presentation, though, to Dina Murphy, who's our Director of the Department of Human Services. July 2009 is designated as Purple Ribbon Month in order to educate and increase public awareness of the dangers of leaving children unattended in and around motor vehicles. This month is also in memory of Caitlin Marie Russell and all the children who have lost their lives to preventable injuries in and around cars. Caitlin's Law makes it a citable offense to leave a child 6 years of age or younger unattended in a motor vehicle without the supervision of someone at least 12 years of age. Caitlin was 6 months old when she died on August 15th, 2000, after being left unattended in a van by her caregiver. To support our efforts to promote child welfare, the Department of Human Services will partner with Canyon Hills Church, First 5 Kern, and Kern County First Responders. Human Services will hold a press conference and safety demonstration with support from our partners on Thursday, July 18th at 10 a.m. at Canyon Hills Church Preschool area located at 7101 Auburn Street in Bakersfield. They will also host a variety of community demonstrations and participate in several events during the months of July and August, distributing purple ribbons and safety information related to Caitlin's Law. So on behalf of the Kern County Board of Supervisors, it's my honor to proclaim July 2019 as Purple Ribbon Month in Kern County in acknowledgement of Caitlin's Law. So I'm going to present this proclamation to Dina and ask if you'd like to say any words. Thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Scrivener, Chairman Couch, and members of the board. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity by proclaiming July as Purple Ribbon Month to bring about community awareness on this very vital subject. As you know, I'm Dina Murphy from Department of Human Services, and Supervisor Scrivener did a wonderful job of laying out my speech, so I'm going to cut right to recognizing the partners, because this isn't something that we do alone. I'm joined here today by Roland Meyer, the Executive Director of First Five, the Canyon Hills Preschool Director, Linda Vinson, Executive Director of Kern County Network for Children, Tom Corson, Kern County Sheriff's Department Under Sheriff Brian Wheeler, and also I saw Tyson Davis come up, so I want to recognize them. Kern County Fire Department Chief David Witt, and also their PIO officer Andrew Freeborn. Bakersfield Police Department Captain Matson is with us, and Officer Perkins. California Highway Patrol, I think that our wonderful Robert Rodriguez was trying to get here, but I'm not sure he made it in. I know they had a couple of traffic issues this morning. And our Kern County Public Health Assistant Director, Bryn Kerrigan. We all share the message and the hope of keeping children safe in and around cars, and I say in and around because I'll discuss the heat issues in just a moment, but what Robert Rodriguez does when he gets up to the preschool is actually lines little children up behind the sports utility vehicles, and when you're in trucks or SUVs, even with the cameras, you get past 20 children before you actually see one. And so there are blind sides to some of the larger vehicles, and it's really great for the parents at the preschools to see that and be mindful of watching their little ones around cars. And unfortunately, this year alone, so far, we have had 20 deaths due to hypothermia in the nation. It just blows me away because every one of them was preventable. So whether it's look before you lock, or in the wonderful packet that you received this year, the purple packet, you'll see that there's a nice reminder that can go either on your steering wheel or hang from your gear shift. We all live with a cell phone. If you could put those back with your little ones who are buckled in, so that you make sure you're getting them out when you're getting out. I know I've shared stories year after year. It's quite surprising, but even at the Department of Human Services, last year I shared that the day before our Purple Ribbon Awareness Month presentation at the board, a mom had left a 4-year-old in the car for 1 hour at 98 degrees. There was cloud coverage for some odd reason last year on that day, and that's what saved that little boy. But he was practically unconscious, just eyes rolled back in the head, soaking wet, and it was just a blessing that he lived. When I'm joined with my folks back here, just too often they respond to near misses, and that's just one example of a near miss in our department parking lot. But they deal with this all throughout the summer, and then they deal with the car safety issues every day of the year. So with near misses, with fatalities, our first responders are there to pick up and try to save these little children, or face the unthinkable. So let this proclamation be a reminder today that this is 100% preventable when we run into these temperature issues within the car and the little children. So again, look before you lock. Know that I'm a grandmother and I'll be using these tools as well. I keep my cell phone in the back with my little ones because I'm tied to my cell phone. So when my cell phone gets out, we all get out together. As Supervisor Scrivener said, on Thursday the 18th, we're going to be up at Canyon Hills with a myriad of these team members with us, and going through some of the safety issues, but also putting a temperature gauge in a car at a set time and then revisiting that 15 minutes later, and then you see that temperature gauge just pop right through the top. So the degrees in the car can be as many as 20 degrees higher at least after 15 minutes. So it's eye-opening. I thank you again for the proclamation and bringing awareness to this very vital issue, and I thank all the partners that are behind me really trying to do the outreach and making sure every day of the year that we're taking care of children around vehicles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you all for being here today. Next item is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter that's not on the agenda but is under the jurisdiction of the board. We try to observe a 2-minute time limit for this portion of the meeting for people to speak. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public presentation? Morning.
Hello, my name is Michael Horn. I'm the CEO and founder of Gifted Minds Academy of the High Intellect Mind, Entertainment, Think Tank, and Ministries. What my organization is we're actually a school run by geniuses, taught by geniuses, for geniuses. We teach geniuses like myself to discover what our genius abilities are to make this world a better, and teach them to use those genius abilities to make this world a better place. Also, we teach them to use these abilities to actually make it safer for kids. Because we don't know who are geniuses or who are not geniuses. So we got to assume everybody's a genius and protect everybody, which means protect those kids, because that kid could be a genius and not even knowing it. So it's more crucial to actually follow that and actually prevent those and be a supporter of that Caitlin law. And so I am one of your supporters, and I'm going to talk to you more about it after the meeting. And so we design, we have 4 parts. We have the school and dormitory. We also have the Think Tank 1, which deal with the electronics and technology, and the math and the psychology. We have Think Tank 2, which deal with which you don't see a genius in this field every day, is criminal justice, law, fire science, and medical science, which includes medical research. And I'm one of those geniuses who actually teach the geniuses in the criminal justice and forensic science field. I also, we create robotic technology to actually prevent crime. It's like a 3-part tracking system that actually tracks escaped convicts and bring them back to prison, or escaped parolees who actually violated parole and probation. So we create robotic armor to protect cops from bullets and sheriff and military, as well as protect firefighters from being burned, because the metal that this armor is made out is actually fire resistant and fireproof and bulletproof. So it's better than actual the bulletproof vest, which just gets stuck in the vest because it just bounced off the metal armor.
Mr. Horn.
And so I'm looking for funding from the board, hoping you guys actually could support me to actually be able to put some funding so I could actually get a building and location so we could actually solve these problems that the government can't solve.
Thank you for your statement today.
You're welcome.
Any other public statements? Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is O.C. Crawford. I'm from Bakersfield, and some of you have seen me before, and I did call you, Mr. Chairman, but I know you have a busy schedule.
No,
but anyway.
They told me.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm on a mission, possible. This is our 3rd year. We'll be having an awards banquet. And last year, we honored all the mayors of Kern County, and we had a good turnout. And the year before, we honored citizens. But this year, in September, we're honoring exemplary citizens from each city in Kern County. And we are going to publicly honor all of you Kern County Board of Supervisors, because in my working with some of the politicians, I found out that you all do a really good job. It's a really difficult job. I was in Tehachapi last night, and it was some big problems. But this is what you guys do. And you need to be respected and honored, and honored for what you do. You sacrifice your time for the purpose of the public. And I'm hoping that you all can come. The mission that we have, the True Love Tribe, is to make Kern County the best county in America. And we can do that because we have good people. But what we really need is to have the participation of all 5 supervisors, all the mayors. Let it go on. Hopefully the news will cover it. And we want to be an example for other counties to follow. In this era of so much partisanship, we want to bring unity, and we can demonstrate that by coming together and respecting and honoring each other beyond everything. Politics, this is something that's good for humanity. So I'm just inviting you to come, and I'll leave a letter in your offices. Mr. Couch has one already. and I hope that you all can come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crocker. Any other public speakers today? Yes, sir.
Good morning, David Abbasi, native of Bakersfield. I'm here today to talk about another ballot measure that I've drafted. As you guys probably know, I've drafted a ballot measure that's qualified for March 2020 that addresses the cannabis issue, the pay-to-play monopolies, and other things that we had. The tax revenue for that cannabis ballot measure is directed to law enforcement in general. It also has the tax money going to kindergarten through 12th grade schools and for drug treatment education. So it's pretty popular. I have another ballot measure I'm drafting for the election cycle next year. It's for term limits. This ordinance measure will create term limits for the County Board of Supervisors by limiting a person from serving on the Board of Supervisors for more than 2 terms. Term limits encourage qualified candidates to seek public office by placing reasonable limitations upon the number of terms which may be served by the members of the Board of Supervisors in their lifetimes. Term limits ensure that the public interest is served rather than the special interests by promoting fresh leadership to address the pressing problems facing Kern County. Incumbents are only focused on getting reelected no matter what, and they don't take risks on real solutions for fear of losing their campaign contributions. Incumbents also have massive advantages in terms of money, media, and infrastructure, making it difficult for newcomers to get elected. We have public health and safety crises under our current leadership that is beholden to special interests, which is why we need urgent reform. We don't need career politicians, we need real solutions, and the people of Kern County deserve better. Also, I wanted to mention something about the earthquakes real quick. Earthquakes apparently are not caused by fracking, but the actual wastewater disposal. And according to this and the permits that they had issued in 2015 for the wastewater disposal, many groups, along with the farmers, had sued Kern County for the environmental damage that was done and the crops that were lost as a result of the wastewater disposal. So it's very plausible, and science is backing it, that you guys may have been responsible for the earthquakes that we recently had. So again, ruining lives, ruining the environment, enough is enough. I'd like to put this information on file, and I'll be filing the term limits ballot measure today.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Rossi.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Any other public comments this morning? Seeing none, we'll go on to item 8, which is board member announcements and reports.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I would just like to say that I sincerely hope that my colleagues had a wonderfully refreshing, calming, peaceful past couple of weeks.
How about you?
Yeah. Seriously, though, I do want to say that one thing I've left out in all my thanks has been to thank each of you for your support. Each one of you had a role in helping and contributing to the problems in Ridgecrest over the past couple weeks, and I want to thank you. And the city of Ridgecrest wants to thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other board member announcements or reports? Okay. That takes us, I believe, to item 10, which is on page 3. Under airports, this is a proposed resolution adopting the revised rates and charges for utilities, parking, rental of buildings and land, landing fees, ramp charges, and other airport-related fees. Mr. Witzel, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Couch and supervisors. The Airports Department comes to you today for your review of a resolution increasing some rates and instituting new airport fees. While Meadows Field has seen increased passenger activity, our finances have been stressed from the multi-phase runway project and increases in regular expenses. I have discussed these items in draft form with our commercial tenants and received their feedback to make sure that the rates are reasonable and fair. The proposed increases are modest and yet meaningful to the revenue forecast of the airport's department. Let me start with the increases to existing rates and fees. The department is requesting an increase in landing fees from $1.60 per 1,000 pounds to $1.80 per 1,000 pounds. Our rates are comparable to other area airports. Locally based aircraft and all general aviation aircraft under 10,000 pounds will still be exempt from landing fees. The department is requesting an increase in fuel flowage fees from 9 cents a gallon to 10 cents a gallon. This rate is also similar to other area airports. I am also changing how the rate is stated, making small percentage increases in the future more manageable. Current revenues do not currently cover the direct costs of security training and badging. With this recommended increase to badging fees and training costs, the airport intends to research and implement online training services to provide better customer service at this slightly higher cost. We propose also to increase the fee charged to charter airlines for occasional use of the airport terminal. This fee covers joint use space, including the lobby, baggage handling areas, and hold rooms, charged per flight rather than through a long-term lease. Now moving on to new fees and rates. The first new fee implementation is a commercial operating permit. Companies that desire to conduct independent aeronautical and non-aeronautical activities at Meadowsfield Airport without leasing facilities or land would be subject to this fee. The proposed rate captures the value from use of shared airport facilities, assures security integrity, manages risk, and keeps track of the competitive environment between off-airport and on-airport operators. I've also discovered that the department owns water and sewer infrastructure. We are paying the water and sewer bills for many of our tenants without recovering any of the cost. The proposed fee structure in the resolution captures the department's direct and administrative costs, including emergency repairs. This will only apply to those tenants connected to our water mains or benefiting from airport fire hydrants. The last proposed fee is a customer facility charge known as a CFC on rental car transactions. The rental car concession and lease agreement approved by your board in February 2019 contained a provision for the implementation of a CFC, as it's known, to develop a quick turnaround facility at Meadowsfield Airport. A quick turnaround facility provides for common use car washing, light repairs, and fueling to support the business of car rentals. The revenue generated from the CFC would be limited to the quick turnaround facility project and any financing structure as allowed under state law. The board will have further oversight on the QTA as this emerges as a concept, becomes a project, is awarded to a contractor, and finally opens for operation over the next few years. The proposed CFC creates a narrowly focused, low-cost local funding stream for landside airport development. In summary, I recommend your approval of the subject resolution implementing the updated rates and charges at Kern County airports. I would be happy to clarify the details about the rate increases and new fees, or take any of your questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Witzel. Let's open this up for public comment before we go to the board. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll return to the board for questions, comments, or action. Mr. Supervisor Gleason.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Witzel. Next item, I believe, is item 30, which is on page 5. It's under the fire department. It's a presentation on electrical utilities, public safety power, the public safety power shutoff program to de-energize electrical power to protect public safety during increased risk of fire. Morning, Chief.
Board of Supervisors, David Witt, Fire Chief and Director of Emergency Services. On behalf of Emergency Services, today I'll give a short presentation on public service power shutoffs, and behind me we have the different directors that would play a role in the power shutoffs, as well as Pacific Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison sitting behind me. So I'll give my presentation and then I'll open it up to questions if I could, with questions to PG&E and Southern California Edison. Okay, public safety power shutoffs. Per California Public Utilities Code 451 and 399, investor-owned electric utilities are allowed to de-energize electrical power to protect public safety. In 2018, the California Public Utilities Commission adopted resolution which strengthens customer and local government notification requirements before de-energization. To meet the requirements, electric utility companies have developed a de-energization protocol, referred to as a public safety power shutoff, as a prevalent measure of last resort in the utility if the utility company reasonably believes there is an imminent and significant risk, then they can shut off the power. So they do this based on weather conditions. You know, oftentimes in fire service, we look at things like relative humidity, geography, where this is in the landscape, history, the relevance of whether there's going to be a big fire, and oftentimes we refer to red flag conditions. They divide it up into Tier 2, which is elevated, and Tier 3, which is extreme. And you can see on this map here, the yellow would be the Tier 2, and orange would be Tier 3 or red. So far to date, obviously, we've had multiple messages in various areas around Lake Isabella, as well as the Bear Valley, Tehachapi area. They will notify customers 48 hours prior and 24 hours prior. They'll notify local government 72 hours prior. We've set up a system, Georgiana Armstrong has set up a system to notify people. All of us get email notifications of where we're at in the process. Deactivation could occur at any time, day or night, dependent upon the Southern California Edison and PG&E. And I want to state, I should have said this in the beginning, this is not a Kern County Fire Department program. This is not a Kern County Fire Department program. We are reactionary to PG&E and SCE, but this is not our program. We're reacting to it. So Pacific Gas and Electric, mainly San Joaquin Valley, so through the Bakersfield area, Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas, and Southern California Edison would be other areas, mainly Lake Isabella area. Deactivation could be a small area. It could be as small as Bodfish, or it could be as big as all of Lake Isabella and the Tehachapi area and on up the transmission line. So what are the impacts? Our team has looked at 7 hospitals in PG&E's territory, 2 hospitals in SCE's territory, and how long they can operate without electricity with backup generators. Schools are affected. Schools could be closed. Potable water can be affected. Those that have the bigger companies, like Cal Water, wouldn't be as affected as much as those that have water wells if they don't have solar power. So a lot of people up at the Lake Isabella area or more rural areas would be affected more than some of the bigger areas. Wastewater. We have generators for 5 days of operations. Public Works can pump the ponds, and we feel resistance for 7 days without interruptions. Fire suppression, we wouldn't have fire hydrants that would be pressurized. We have other sources that we can use for water. However, it would be an obstacle. Hazardous materials facilities. The powers to be are constantly talking to hazardous materials facilities and working with them, but they have a lot of built-in fail-safe programs to assist in this. The continuity of operations, we have alerts and warnings. Once again, though, it's the utility companies who will notify, are responsible and have to notify our constituents that there is a power outage. However, we have warning systems that we would activate in certain circumstances as well. We have cooling centers, 6 county-owned operated cooling centers, obviously concerned about the old and the young. The senior center at Lake Isabella has an on-site generator, and we're making plans for generators to be put in other locations to have cooling centers. We know when there's high fire danger, it's obviously very hot outside, and so that's a concern. Fuel, how do we get to where we're going? 16 road yard maintenance facilities have gas and diesel. However, only 3 sites have backup generators. Supports for roads, fire, and sheriff's department are their top priority. There'll be no regional transit disruption is anticipated. One area that I think we need to look at as a whole, regardless of this power outage, we need to look at our generators and our backup power. And we have 69 generators on site. However, 29 of these wouldn't operate everything. So at a lot of our fire stations, we wouldn't be able to operate the fuel and the doors and the dispatch equipment on the inside, but we're working on that, and we've got a grant application in for that. No power, no backup power to the coroner's office, and we're coming up with additional plans. So public safety power shutoff notification. We have an email group set up that notifies everybody. We have a GIS working group that is going to be working together to produce maps so we know the areas. It's been an ongoing thing, though. It's been an ongoing every day. There's been a threat of power shutoffs. So as you can see, we have a wide variety of participants who all are going to play a role in the public safety power outages by the utilities company. Aging and Adult Services, Behavior Health and Recovery, the CAO's office, County Council, EMS with the hospitals and the old and the young, Environmental Health with hazardous materials and a whole slew of other items, Fire Department, General Services, Human Services, our computer systems, Public Works, sheriffs, and then the other stakeholders, OES, the Superintendent of Schools, and Superior Courts, if there was an issue. Public awareness, this is so important, whether it's a power shutoff or it's an earthquake. Somehow the power is shut off. We are going to step up our game on education, on how we prepare ourselves through our social media for life without power, water, fuel, and how we prepare ourselves. And so we're actively ramping up in that area through the CAO's office as well as through the fire department and other venues. And go to ready.gov for more tips and information. And so with that, that's the general gist of public safety power shutoffs. But I know there'll be questions that for PG&E and Southern California Edison, and so I would like to take this opportunity to invite them up to talk a little bit and present on the items that I may have missed, and I'll be right here.
Thank you. Is there anyone here today from PG&E or Southern Cal Edison? Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Brian Thoburn, Government Relations Manager. I'm standing in this morning for my colleague, Cal Rossi. And then I also want to introduce Tom Jacobus, who's our Principal Manager for Business Resiliency. So I think at this point I may want to just turn it over to Tom for some comments on our program.
I'm sorry, could you spell your last name for us?
Sure. My last name is Thoburn, T as in Tom, H-O, B as in boy, U-R-N as in Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. Tom Jacobus from Southern California Edison. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to address any questions you may have. I understand the county's been whipsawed in the last week or so. The conditions that we look at, as the chief mentioned, we look at fuel conditions, live fuel moisture, dead fuel moisture, and make an assessment. That's one tier that we look at, or one set of criteria. The other criteria that we look at are the wind speeds, and it's not necessarily that the winds are so high, but we've got about 1,300 circuits. About a third of our infrastructure falls within Tier 2 or Tier 3 high fire risk areas as identified by the Public Utility Commission map that was put together. So we look at fuel conditions and we look at wind speeds, and in particular the wind speeds at which our various circuits, which we've got about 1,300 of them, that not within the county but all in distribution circuits that fall within high fire risk areas. At what point do they begin to experience problems such as outages? And then from that we determine what the wind speeds are. So we've been in this sort of do loop in Kern County. We are working with CAL FIRE. The chief of CAL FIRE, Southern California Edison, has hired a fire fuels expert, which the chief knows and everybody in the fire community knows, to work together not just with SCE in the public sector, but to work with also PG&E and San Diego Gas and Electric, so that we get so that we're all on the same page in terms of what conditions that we're looking at and what really defines the risk. Because we are seeing elevated fuel conditions. It's not extreme. We also haven't de-energized any circuits at this point, because the other thing that we look for is, we make a determination of whether we're going to start to notify based on these fuel conditions. If we see elevated fuel conditions, if we see the wind speeds at the speeds that we're looking for the particular circuits, that triggers us to begin our notifications at 72 hours from when we're expecting the weather. We'll reach out to the county, to the elected officials, to let them know that we're considering this. Then when it gets down to the day that we're expecting the weather, we have qualified electrical workers out in the field that have local knowledge, that have worked in these communities for a long time, really looking eyes on the ground to see, hey, are they seeing the wind speeds or the conditions that our models are showing? If they do see unsafe conditions in the field, they will call us back at our Emergency Operations Center, and we'll make a decision to de-energize. In the 3 events that we had last year, I think we de-energized 3 lines total in our whole service territory. It impacted about 148 customers total in the 3 events. And we were able to minimize the impact because our lines have isolation points where we're able to pinch down the impacted area and still leave most of the areas energized where we're not seeing unsafe conditions. Public safety power shutoff isn't the only thing we do. It is our method of last resort. We also change the way that we operate our electric system when we see these elevated conditions. We have devices on our electric system called reclosers, which, just like the name implies, it's like a circuit breaker. If there's a fault on the line pops open, interrupts the flow of power. The recloser then does just what the name implies, recloses, sends a test bolt of electricity down the line. If it tests good, the line stays closed. If it tests bad, it pops open again. So during these higher risk times, we'll block that reclosing feature so that, hey, if we did have a palm frond laying across a line, or a tree blew into the line, or a trampoline, or an easy up, once that line pops open, it will stay open. It will not reclose because, A, if it didn't start a fire on the first fault, we don't want to give it another shot. We've also got fast curve settings enabled, which reduces the amount of energy that's expelled when these lines do fault. Again, if it's limiting the time that the fault is occurring, it's tripping it that much faster. So those are things that we do ahead of time. We're also spending, millions of dollars to harden our systems. Unfortunately, those investments aren't. It takes a lot of time to upgrade 1,300 circuits with insulated conductor and fire-resistant poles, and it's going to take about 5 years. So we filed a wildfire mitigation plan that has metrics in it that we're held to by the Public Utility Commission and others. And the estimate right now is it's going to take about 5 years to get those upgrades in place, which will reduce the need for a potential public safety power shutoff. It will reduce the likelihood. But here's where we're at right now, so I'll open it up to questions, or if you want to hear from PG&E.
What's the board's pleasure? I'll tell you what, we'll hear from PG&E, then we'll
Sure, thanks.
ask anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairman and Supervisors. I'm Kristen Dowd, Local Public Affairs Representative for Kern County, and I have with me my colleague Jeff Kessley, who's the Public Safety Specialist. I guess really don't have much to add. The Chief did a great job presenting the program, as well as Edison expanding on the program. It is a statewide program that all the investor-owned utilities are rolling out, and it really is for the safety of our customers and the communities that we serve. But happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I have a couple. I'd like to see, I know you showed us, I think, maybe that was the chief that showed us a map of Kern County. Maybe it went as far as the coast. I don't recall how.
I think it's just Kern County.
Could we see the map, not right now, I recognize you probably don't have that, but a map of the state? Who all is impacted eventually? I'd like to see that. And I'll just ask the question that I think is lingering. Is this a reaction to some action taken by the legislature that really sort of put the onus upon the publicly owned utilities? Had there not been an action taken by the legislature, you probably wouldn't be doing this. I'm not trying to put you in a difficult spot, but isn't that where we're at?
Well, as we've looked at the fires, 10 of the 20 most destructive fires have happened in the last 5 years. So we're coming off 5 years of drought. We've got the governor and Cal OES calling this the new normal in terms of urban interface. And we've got these destructive fires that are occurring, only 10% of which approximately are utility caused. As a company, we're looking at it saying we cannot be in a position where we're part of the problem or in the position where we're burning down a neighborhood where our lines are causing catastrophic fires. So we're having to upgrade our infrastructure and do all this work because I think we recognize we're going to continue to grow as a state, and we're going to continue to build in these wildland urban interface areas, in these high fire risk areas. So we've got to take action.
I'm not sure that answered my question.
Okay.
The question was there, and maybe it was legal action. I don't recall.
So we've been.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to get.
So we've been doing this, or we've had this authority for a long time. We actually did do a de-energization in 2003, in the Arrowhead area when there was a significant fire going on, and we actually de-energized circuits there. So I think, regardless of legislative action or any other kind of action, both our company and I don't want to speak for PG&E, but I guess I am, would be doing the same thing.
I don't want to put you. Let me ask our CAO, because I understand the position you're in. Is there, or our county council, was there recent legislative action, or was there a recent court case? Did the liability shift from, or was more liability placed on the publicly owned utilities within the last, since some of these fires that have occurred, that makes the publicly owned utilities even contemplate this action?
There was some legislative activity, primarily at this time, though. It's a serious liability concern for the electrical utilities. The only utilities required to comply with these requirements are investor-held.
Investor-owned, okay. And can you briefly describe what the legislative activity or the legislative action was?
I'm not terribly familiar with it. It was simply imposed after the campfire issues.
I'd be interested in knowing that when you get a chance, if you could research that for us.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you. Chief, could you run through one more time for us those consequences or threats that these proposed de-energizations will have on public safety infrastructure?
So the threats or the impacts are wide variety of aspects. We could look from a fire standpoint, and we could look at fire stations being able to operate without backup power. Or we could look at a wide variety of infrastructure, whether it be EMS related, whether it be hospitals, water, sewer. But our team of directors have put together a plan to address each one of these issues. It's been an ongoing effort every day now for the last week. There are areas specifically that we need to look at as a county as a whole, and that's generators, generator power. For the fire department, we've applied for a grant, for $1 million grant to put more generators at fire stations. And so there's a wide variety, fuel, water, a lot of big ticket items, old, young, and heat. There's a lot of impacts that we could have and that we're trying to mitigate.
So the one that caught my ear the first time you went through this was the issue of whether or not fire hydrants might or might not work. Explain to us why a fire, did I understand that correctly, and why would a fire hydrant not work?
So with the electrical capabilities of pumping, there's a pressure involved with the fire hydrants. One aspect, though, I reached out to Southern California Edison and talked with a cohort of mine, Troy Whitman, and I believe that given certain circumstances, they would energize the power back on, because we may need the hydrants to most effectively fight a fire. We have other ways to get water. In some cases, could be drafting, could be engines that specifically have water, called water tenders, that carry water from one site to another.
Very limited quantities of water compared to fire hydrants, though, right?
Yes, sir.
So who was your cohort, you said, in another organization, and what organization was he with?
Troy Whitman is in charge of, I believe, fire operations. Fire management for Southern California Edison.
Where's he? Okay.
And he's, we've had conversations about, in the event of a fire and our fire department needing more water.
It's surprising to me that apparently the utilities have had this authority since 2003, if I understood Mr. Jacoby correctly. So it isn't like we haven't had some time to think about what the consequences are, but I would like us to think about such consequences as would a power outage at the absolute worst possible time affect the ability of the dam to be effective at Lake Isabella. Whatever those horrific consequences might be, worst case scenarios would be. So who's running those out, and when will we have an assessment of those kinds of threats?
Georgiana has been in contact with the Army Corps, and she is researching Army Corps activities. And do you have anything else to add, Georgia? We're good.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question of the utilities. What responsibility do you believe you have? You're not our enemy. We're not trying to throw you under the bus. But the reality is that we rely upon the service that you provide for protecting people's lives. So if you are interrupting that service and it has consequences, what responsibility do you have to help us mitigate those risks in those areas? For example, fire hydrants not working or comm systems, whatever it might be.
Sure. First and foremost, it would be communication and notification to the extent we can. And the chief, as he was outlining the plan, you know, it contemplates a very neat and orderly, there's a 72-hour notification, a 48-hour notification, and a 24. I don't want to mislead you up here. That's when we're able to do that. If we're not able to do that, you may not get that notification. That's what the plan is, and to the extent that we're capable of doing that, and who holds us accountable after the fact is the Public Utility Commission in reports that we're required to file. So communication and coordination first and foremost, and you know, we did actually have situations like the chief had described during the Woolsey fire, where there was a water agency that lost power. They weren't proactively de-energized, but they lost power due to the fire, and we were able to provide them generators to support fire suppression. So it's not a promise I can make up here that we'll always be able to provide generators, because we have a 50,000 square mile service territory. But if it was an incident that was limited in scope, we're going to do absolutely everything we can possibly do to support the operation. And I think we've demonstrated that in the past. During the Erskine fire, the gentleman that the chief mentioned, Troy Whitman, works for me. He's got 2 other cohorts that go out and embed directly in the incident command on scene for the fire operation, so that we're able to directly support. And that's whether it's a hospital, even though they're required to have generators. If a hospital calls us and says, our generator didn't start, or a water agency calls us and says, we need help, and you know, the chief or you know, the director of emergency management says that this is a critical need, we're going to do everything that we can possibly do to help.
I'm not being ominous with you, but others will judge after a horrific event occurs whether or not you did everything you could do, and the hindsight is a lot more higher level of scrutiny than foresight, because people will pick apart your decisions and the chief's decisions and our decisions. So I guess that's the...
And I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
People pick apart mine as well. And when I say we'll do everything that we can absolutely do, you know, we have incident management teams that are managing these incidents for Southern California Edison, and it's the same protocol and system that's used by the public sector. So, you know, to get in touch with us, or how we organize and how we move logistically, how we move equipment, it's very much the same. So that also speeds the coordination.
Well, I hope we can have a series of conversations and updates about how we're coordinating these threats and what role the utilities can play in helping with them. It goes beyond the big public ones. My father lived the last 12 years of his life on an air mattress as a quadriplegic from a car wreck that he was in, and his life was affected in 20 minutes if that air mattress went down, you know, deflated. So having the ability to be aware of the consequences in people's lives and plan for them is, you know, we're going to hold everybody to a high standard to make sure we can do that. So I'll look forward to having more conversations with you guys.
So we're also responsible for public outreach to people with access and functional needs, like you just mentioned, and partnering up with the local agencies to go and do outreach so that this isn't a surprise to anybody.
Yeah, having a generator in the family. There are many levels of how to get the word down to, you know, a 75-year-old woman who's going to have to go in the backyard and turn on a generator because her husband will suffer a half an hour later if there's no power. So this is a very, very deep and comprehensive issue. So I'll look forward to having more conversations with you. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I've got a question for you. Obviously, if one of these PSPs is actually activated, there's impacts to our fire stations that may be in that particular service area. You spoke about the ability to fuel the equipment and also operate the gate, the impacts potentially to the communication system. And then if you're if the service area actually has a fire. We talked about the impacts on the fire hydrants and water supply. But what about just simply the impacts to our department when we are notified that a PSP may be activated? This has been occurring, I think, every day this week. You first contacted me about this, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, that potentially this could happen, I think, over the weekend in Bear Valley, where I have a lot of constituents. So what are the impacts to us when we're just notified that this could occur?
There's huge impacts, Supervisor Scrivener, to not only the fire department, but all of county government, because we all play a role in this. And so every day we get the email notifications, or at least we have been for over a week now, of what we do is we ramp up. So we're sending the emails out. Each department head is thinking about the area that could be impacted, what we can do to help. And so it's taking away from our daytime operations in other areas to focus on these specific areas. For me, we may be thinking about moving a portable generator to another location. We may think about how we would operate in that particular area, reaching out to constituents, our public affairs division, rampantly working to control rumors or to get the facts straight on a daily basis. And so really everybody is focusing in on their particular function and how it would affect that area, and taking away from other operations that may be important.
Do you think there are financial impacts for your department?
Yes, most definitely. Whenever we open the EOC, there is a financial impact to the county. There's a financial impact to probably all the departments within the county, and I can speak for the fire service because it is a big deal, as Supervisor Maggard alluded to, and all the effects that it could have to the old and the young, and we have to prepare for that. It's not something that you can take lightly, or that takes few actions. It takes quite a bit of preparation and to handle something like this.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Alsop, what's your opinion on potential financial impacts to the county, potential or actual financial impacts to the county, when we're notified that that a PSP may be activated? And do you think that we could quantify that?
Yeah, I'm unable, Chairman Couch, Supervisor Scrivener, able to quantify it now.
Of course.
But I'm in agreement with the chief. I mean, I think the real big concern on this, and I think there's probably a learning curve here for everybody, the utilities and local government, as this thing rolls out. By the way, Supervisor Couch, just before I answer that, it's, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, SB 901 was a state wildfire law in 2018. The legislature passed that bill, and that required utilities to create plans to mitigate these dangers in high fire risk areas. They set forward on creating these plans, and they presented the plans, each individual utility investor-owned, to the CPUC, who then, I believe that was in March or in the spring of this year, and the CPUC approved or didn't approve those plans. I think in the cases of both these utilities, all those plans have been approved. So that is the legislative action. Our big concern, to the chief's point, is these power outages are potentially prolonged outages, and which is why we're spending so much time getting prepared and alerting customers and figuring out logistics and things like that. There's going to be a cost associated with preparing, and obviously a cost associated when all of this happens. It really all falls on our shoulders in unincorporated areas, because we've got employees working overtime. Geo is, she's moved her bedroom into the EOC at this point, I think. But these are concerns. I believe, and I think the utilities can comment directly on this, if there is if conditions warrant a shut-off, and I think it probably depends on the area and the size, they institute some sort of a visual inspection of that entire line. And I believe in conference calls I've listened to, participated in, that whole process from shut-off to repowering could be a 24-hour period, if not longer. So that's what we're worried about in areas like Lake Isabella, Bodfish, or Bear Valley in 100+ degree weather. Having power off for a 24-hour period or more, that's a substantial undertaking for us to make sure folks are taken care of. So we would certainly be tracking these costs going forward.
Yeah, I think that we should be. I mean, obviously, the big impact to the customers for having an outage for an extended period of time is extremely disruptive, can be very problematic for folks that depend on power for keeping medications refrigerated. When it's hot out, air conditioning, that's going to be a big deal. But for us, just looking at the cost that we are going to have to bear because of this program, I think we need to be quantifying that, and we need to be talking to our legislative representatives, our lobbyists that we employ, in order to ensure that we're bearing the least financial impact that we're required to. The thresholds here: 25 mile per hour wind or 45 mile per hour gust, humidity equal to or less than 20%. That occurs in parts of my district quite frequently. And so my concern is that this can be something that we could see implemented or rather activated with these PSPs quite regularly, unfortunately. I mean, I may be wrong about that, but just looking at those thresholds, I think that those can occur quite a bit up in the east side of the county during certain times of the year. I was happy to hear that SCE indicated that they have a 5-year plan for some infrastructure improvements that are hopefully going to shore up your grid where these occurrences would be less. Does PG&E also have that kind of a plan? Kristen, Ms. Dow, could you tell us do you also have a 5-year plan or?
Yes, we also have a plan, and it also includes hardening our system to ensure that we're utilizing all the latest technology, to ensure that we're using materials that are more fire resistant, that we're also standing up a community wildfire center that monitors all of our service territory, and we have weather stations as well as different monitoring systems that can tell what's going on in real time on the ground. And we have, just as Edison does, we have staff that are doing that as well, that are in person, so.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me for right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gleason.
Thanks, Chairman. Tom, can I talk to you again? I want to apologize. I really wouldn't do what I said I was going to do when we talked last.
I was going to bring an umbrella.
Yeah, I know.
Or see if there was a bucket over my head.
Is that your boss behind you?
No.
Oh, he's not.
No.
Well, tell your boss you're a good man.
Okay.
You took the abuse and you did well and you were calm and I wasn't, and somehow we managed our way through the conversation. I want to start off by saying, Tom, and this also goes to you, Kristen, is that I applaud your efforts. There's no doubt the intent behind what we're trying to do here is to prevent another Erskine fire. That's how I look at that. We're trying to take every precaution we can to do what we need to do to make sure that we preserve life and to maintain the quality community up there. I also think that part of the reason for this is liability on the utility companies. You're doing it not only because CPUC, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, not only is because CPUC has ordained this program and said go forth and do good stuff, but also You were sued. Were you sued last year for the fire up in? Was that your?
I'm not the
But
I'm not the legal representative
right.
for SCE, so I
the way I read it, and I'm not holding it, I'm not saying this is the wrong thing. I'm just saying that there's a liability to your company, the existence of your companies, because of the problems you had in previous years on fires and local. It's just an assumption I'm making.
that is a true fact.
Okay. So I understand that's a good thing to do. I just think that right now we're in a place where removing that liability and taking these actions are being burdened by the ratepayers and their quality of life, and not by making investments sufficiently to prevent it from ever happening again by hardening your systems. I'm glad to hear conversations earlier that this is a temporary program. I use the word temporary.
I think it's going to reduce the likelihood very significantly. I couldn't quote you a number at this point, but I think I could commit to you it would be a very significant reduction in the likelihood
of ever doing this again because of the hardening and the technology improvements you guys are investing in. And I read a report or something that you guys are making $4 billion a year in technology investments. Is that true? Is that it? Not locally here, but throughout the whole state?
I couldn't quote that it was $4 billion, but I know we're spending hundreds of millions in hardening our electric system.
I'm trying to stick up for you, Tom. I'm trying to help you out here.
Investing in our ability to forecast the weather and see what it's actually doing out there, so that we can make decisions.
It's a lot of money. I appreciate that. The PSPS program began. I know you guys have had the authority and the capability of de-energizing circuits for years. You did it in 2003, you said. But when did the PSPS program begin?
I think it was in 2018 is when we really had a more formalized plan.
Okay, so last year we had the PSPS program.
Right.
Not to say that you didn't have the ability to take precautionary actions previous to that, but the program began last year.
We have the authority to operate our grid safely.
Thank you, appreciate it. How many times have I heard you say there are 3 lines that have been de-energized, totally impacting 148 customers?
That's correct. There were 3 de-energization events. There may have been more than 3 lines involved, but it could have been 3.
Thanks, appreciate it. The conversation we had, I don't know when it was. I have no idea what day it was.
That's okay, I don't remember either. It all runs together.
But it was about tripping off the Erskine circuit, and that would have impacted 3,097 people.
3,082.
3,082 people, okay. That is a significantly, that's a significant event to the quality of life of those people, and the intent is to, in your mind and how we're going about this, is that would be better than, it's bad, but it's better than the Erskine fire happening again. Right. And that would initiate the action. And so there, ergo, was our conversation. And you talked a little bit, I got a bunch of questions, I'm spraying all over the place because I'm writing them down as we're talking, so don't mind me if there's, doesn't have flow to it. The thresholds for you making the decision, or tell me about who the people are that make the decision to trip the circuit off.
So we have an incident commander that's back at our emergency operations center that makes the final call.
And who is he?
He is...
Not his name, but what is his qualifications?
Experience working in our transmission distribution group, operational experience.
Is he a former fire person?
No,
fire
electric people.
Okay. Okay, so tell me about the process. When you get ready to throw that switch, what is going to happen to get you to make that decision, or that person to make that decision?
We either see the conditions coming into fruition, because we have weather stations out there as well, or we get reports in from our observers in the field that say, hey, we're seeing unsafe conditions out here. We're either seeing the lines dancing up and down, which can cause sparks, or we're hearing tree branches break or palm fronds blowing through the air. Our operations people will take that information directly to our incident commander, and they'll make the decision to de-energize. Now, in the time leading up to it, we'll also be looking at what are the isolation points, so that while initially we may have to drop all 3,082 customers, very soon after that, an hour afterwards, we're able to, through switching, isolate that down to just the area where the unsafe conditions were observed. That's why in the last 3 events, there were many more customers than 148 grand total that could have been impacted, could have been thousands, 5,000 to 7,000. But we were able to pinch down the outages through those isolation points in our circuits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. What collaboration do you do with our fire chief, who's our professional, our go-to guy for fire management in the Kern River Valley? What decision, you're making a decision, is that decision independent of his input?
Yes.
So I got in the same phone call with you or maybe someone previous to that this decision was being on the table, being put on the table. This is where I was being notified. You were going through your notification chain. I was being notified by somebody. And I was being told by a fire chief that it is a normal, sunny, windy day in the Kern River Valley, and yet we're getting ready to throw the switch and evacuate 3,082 people from their homes and bring them down to the Lake Isabella Senior Center, which I didn't even know if there was another event going on or not. So you can imagine in my mind what I'm thinking. I'm saying, why are these people who are independent of Kern County making a decision that's going to impact my constituents and not take the counsel from my fire guy, who is a pro from Dover on managing fires in the Kern River Valley? So my question is, you see I asked you in our conversation, I said, please, before you ever throw that switch, talk to him. Did that occur, or do you think that change needs to be made so that he has input into your decision, or does that reduce the liability?
In the days leading up, so the 72 hours, the 48 hours, I heard the chief loud and clear when we spoke, before I spoke with you, that he thought it was a normal day, that he thought it was a regular day. He didn't see an extreme risk. I explained that we were seeing an elevated risk, and I think so. There is the input that's coming in. It's in our incident objectives to consider input from the public sector. So it would be fair to say that it was considered. I think there's an opportunity for all the utilities and the fire agencies for us to get on the same page as them. I had a meeting with Tom Porter, Director of CAL FIRE, just yesterday, where he has asked for that to happen in short order, because this isn't the only place where we could have that discontinuity.
Did the Kern Valley Hospital, was that impacted by if you threw the Erskine switch? I didn't even ask that.
I don't recall off the top of my head.
That would have triggered 1,000 more decisions that we'd have to make downstream of that decision that would adversely impact the quality of life of those patients that were in that hospital or the patients who had scheduled visits that time. So what I'm seeing in my mind here on this whole deal is I see the quality of life of the people in the Kern River Valley being significantly adversely impacted by a decision that's going to be made by a group of people I don't even know. And because you're going to be shutting off, in the summer, it's probably going to happen most in the summertime when their business occurs, you're going to be shutting down electrical power to businesses, to hospitals, to restaurants, to a whole bunch of people. And if the thresholds that you maintain are steady throughout the time you make them, and the same people are making the same subjective decisions or objective decisions, then who's going to want to do business in the Kern River Valley? Who's going to want to come up there if you guys are saying it's time to throw the switch because we got 25 knots of breeze, and the fire chief is saying, hey, it's a normal sunny day up here? So how does that balance? How do we achieve that balance between the decision that's going to be mandated by the CPUC to you guys and the state legislature to the safety of the people in the Kern River Valley and the quality of life and their quality of business? How do we go? Who do I need to talk to? I just don't agree with the way this program is. I don't agree with it. I think it's I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good program, but I think it's got to change quickly because I don't think it can sustain itself after we have 1, 2, or 3 of these events. Holy, you know what's going to break out.
Well, the chief still has the opportunity to tell us that he doesn't think he sees a threat. But we don't have to act on exactly what he says. So he's giving input to the process. We still may make a decision to to go ahead and do something else. So he doesn't have final say.
Right.
So he has input to the process. He gave his input. He gave his input during the process. So the process accounts for that, because we had a call. You know, the coordination and the support that we've gotten from Georgiana and her organization has been great. So I'm not trying to paint the line, but you do have a voice.
Right.
There is a voice in the process.
Thank you, Tom. Is the person throwing the switch for SCE the same person who throws a switch for PG&E, or are they two different people?
Two different people.
So they could come up with two different conclusions. One could throw the switch and one could not.
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
But that's also part of what Tom Porter is trying to get us all on the same page, so
Right.
that we're looking at working off the same sheet of music.
Before we shut secure power to a business, to the supermarket up there, we have to come to a final answer on what's in how to do this better, in my opinion. I just don't like the program. I'm glad to hear you say it's temporary. I'm glad to hear you say that it's 5 years, that you're hopeful to be, your company's target is 5 years to get hardened to the point where you don't have to do this. I appreciate that. I wish you'd make it 3 years or 2 years, but that'd be good. You also said in your comment, I think you said, maybe you didn't say, but I saw on the map, that Bakersfield is not Tier 2 or Tier 3. Is that a correct statement?
I don't think I said that. I think PG&E is Bakersfield.
Okay. Is that true, Kristen, that Bakersfield is not in Tier 2 or Tier 3?
Correct.
Can I assume from that statement that Bakersfield, because they're not in Tier 2 or Tier 3, would never be impacted by any decision that these people make in this room someplace throwing a switch?
No, unfortunately, all of our service territory needs to be prepared for a power shutoff.
What does that mean?
It is less likely because it is not in a Tier 2 or Tier 3, but we do need to be prepared because one of the reasons that PG&E actually did not come to the county last year is because our service territory within Kern County did not include any Tier 2 or Tier 3 areas that included transmission lines, or excuse me, distribution lines. So last year, our program just included distribution lines. So those are the smaller circuits and lines that serve smaller regional areas. Transmission lines, which we have many transmission lines which run through Kern County, are the larger lines that serve much larger customers in larger areas. And so the reason that this program now affects Kern County in terms of PG&E is because this year transmission lines are included.
Kristen, if the gentleman or the lady in the room that was going to throw this switch someplace to de-energize the Erskine circuit, would that have impacted people in Bakersfield?
So the Erskine circuit is Edison's circuit.
Right.
And PG&E does not provide service in that area.
Okay.
So no, it would not, because PG&E's lines are in Bakersfield. Now, obviously the grid all is interconnected.
Right.
But in terms of PG&E, that would not have triggered a PSPS PG&E event.
Thank you, Kristen. Tom, can I talk to you? Could I ask you the same question? People in Bakersfield, would they be impacted if your professional electrical engineer threw that switch to de-energize the Erskine circuit?
Truth is, I don't know standing here.
Okay.
What I would ask is that maybe I could come back to this group with a more formal presentation to describe the whole program.
Okay.
If you would find that useful.
We could talk about that in a minute.
But with transmission, which all the investor-owned utilities have to consider transmission. We were ordered to consider that.
Got it.
Transmission is far more impactful. I could tell you, we don't treat transmission the same way we do distribution. The way we would treat, if we saw what we thought would to be significant risks on the transmission line, this is probably going too deep. There's a California independent system operator, which is like the air traffic controller for the electric grid in California. 3 days out, we would call them and schedule an outage on the particular line. That way, they have time to plan, and the power could be rerouted. We wouldn't just shut it off, unless
So it's like a train line. You shut off one thing here, but you route the train the other way.
Transmission is very impactful.
Okay, all right. Well,
Very impactful.
let me ask you just an arbitrary question. I see the chief inching closer to the mic. He wants to say something here. Go ahead, chief.
I was just going to add to that, sir, that I think there is some concern on my end that through the transmission lines, maybe going to LA County to abate a threat there would have impact here. I'm not an electrical expert, but I am concerned about that.
Thank you, Chief. Tom, how close were we to throwing the Erskine switch over the weekend?
I don't know how close, how to characterize it. We were close to our wind speeds that we had identified, very close, but we didn't see any threats out in the field. Our eyes back from the field said that they did not see unsafe conditions.
So the progression in making the decision that would have shut down security to power to 3,000 people isn't, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, and I know I'm not trying to wordsmith this thing, but you don't have a clear idea of how close you were to making that decision?
Well, I would say we were not close because the feedback that we got from our field observers who were out there, you know, an hour before they're expecting the wind to hit or these conditions to manifest, and they're there for an hour afterwards, just as a buffer, their reports back to us were they were not seeing unsafe conditions. They were seeing the wind come up like we forecast it would, but they were not seeing unsafe conditions.
Okay, so
we were not close to shutting the power off.
Fair enough. Tom, in one of the briefs I have here, it says that the PSPS program decision is based on weather conditions. This brief we showed earlier today, it says, utilities preemptively deactivate power lines due to significant threat of wildfire, and it's based on weather conditions. So that doesn't say, and you're clearing it up for me, which you're seeing telephone poles swaying and stuff like that, which is not necessarily a weather condition, it's something that happened.
Well, it's wind.
No, it's telephone pole moving. Wind is a causal effect to it. So what you're making the decision that you are based on 25 knots of wind. Well, you could have 25 knots of wind from 220, or you could have 25 knots from 180, and have a completely different effect on the telephone pole swaying.
Absolutely.
So it's not weather conditions. It's going to be a combination of weather conditions and
how they're actually manifesting the safety conditions out in the field.
Okay, there's a lot of variables that I'm not real clear on, but I'm hoping to get more clear in the ensuing days. Could you tell me when in the progression of making the decision do you trigger, or I don't know, maybe this isn't a question for you, that the EOC stands up? When does the EOC, we get 72 hours, you notify government, 48 hours, you start notifying more people, and then 24 hours and it marches on till you get to a decision to throw the switch. When does our EOC stand up?
When does your EOC stand up?
Who would answer that question?
And so as we get closer and we'll be monitoring the situation, we haven't done it yet. We haven't had a
Did the EOC
PSPS.
stand up last weekend?
No, we did. We have a very limited, as CAO alluded to, Georgiana is spending some long days in the EOC. However, we didn't stand up a full EOC operation. As we lose power, we will stand up a full EOC operation to make sure we address issues.
Thanks, Chief. Supervisor Scrivener talked about costs, and so I won't beat that drum, but that's another issue that I have I'm trying to understand how much it's going to cost us for this person to make a decision and how that's going to impact us and our budget. And, oh boy, outreach. What guarantees, let's say I some people in Bodfish that I know very well that don't answer their phones, but the lady is suffering from Alzheimer's, later stages, the gentleman is an older gentleman. What guarantees do I have that they would have been notified? I mean, how do you go about outreach? How do you manage outreach, and how do you guarantee that the people most in need not only get notified that their power's going out, but also have the transportation available to get them to Lake Isabella Senior Center? And how do we know Lake Isabella Senior Center is going to be capable of managing their particular circumstances?
So to try to take those one at a time, what our program calls for, or what our actual practices are, or to notify people via their method of preference. okay? So if we have somebody that has, that would be like an access and functional needs type person, like you were maybe describing, we have programs called critical care program where people that are maybe medically dependent on power and have low tolerances for outages. So we notify them via our normal notification system. It's either by phone or by text or by email or all three, however they want to be notified. Our customer service system that does that messaging is smart enough to know whether it got, I don't want to say an answering machine because nobody has those anymore, but whether it got a voicemail or whether a human being picked up. If we don't get a positive response on that outbound notification, meaning, okay, yeah, it went to a voicemail, a human being at Edison will call the customer on the customer's phone of record that we have. If that fails, we will send, and we did this just last weekend, we will send an employee out to the customer's home to knock on the door and make sure that they're aware that we may de-energize the line. We're also required to be doing outreach to these communities, to vulnerable populations across our territory. And we did that last year. We're going to be doing more of it this year. So is it a guarantee? No, but I think, you know, we're taking steps to do the right thing. And then on top of that, at this meeting we had with Cal OES yesterday, it's been a difficult prospect to share information that we have on our critical care customers with the public sector, with you know, your county folks here, Cal OES or others, because of certain laws and regulations. So the PUC, we asked them yesterday, and they agreed to direct us to share this information on, you know, where are the hospitals that we support, where are those, other critical infrastructure, so that we can share that information more freely than, well, we actually weren't able to share it at all. We were prevented by regulation. So I think we have short-circuited the process there, and we're able to do that much more quickly.
Thank you, Tom. Hey, Chief, can I ask you a question? Was the Sheriff's Department notified? I imagine they're a member of the EOC. They do all about
Yes, they're a member of the EOC and a very active member.
So it's safe for me to assume that if we did pull a trigger and evacuate all those homes, we would surge our sheriff's departments up there to make sure we manage law enforcement. We didn't have all these thieves running around, all that kind of stuff.
They would definitely be involved, and I want to make sure, I want to reiterate, we wouldn't evacuate the whole area. We would just assist within that area.
Okay. Enough. I thank everybody for your patience on this. Tom, I think we have some, Kristen, I think we have some work to do. I really do. I would like to help. I would like to be part of the solution. I would like to get something moving because I recognize the effort we're trying to make. If I need to go up to talk to CPUC, I'd be glad to do that, work with locally with you guys. I don't think this program is clearly laid out. It's just not flat on the table yet. And I think we need to get it there fast before we evacuate one home or an elderly person, or we shut down one business, or we turn power off to a hospital. We need to get all our ducks in a row, and right now I just don't think we're there. So I'm eager to work with you. Please call my staff, and I will take that on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgences.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good job. I have a couple of brief ones, and then I don't want to keep you here any longer than I need to, but what would you suggest to your customers or PG&E's customers that they do to mitigate this to them, to the greatest extent possible? Is it solar panels? Is it having a generator in their home? What are the types of things they should do?
So generator, water, flashlights, these types of things that they should have in general, whether it's a proactive power shutoff or earthquake preparedness.
But specifically to power, it's a generator.
Generator is great to have. Not everybody can afford one of those.
If they have solar panels, will that mitigate it?
If they have batteries in their home. We get this question quite a bit. People think, if I have solar panels on my home, I'm going to be immune to power outages. And unless you have a storage capacity on your property, unless you have batteries, you're going to go down.
Okay, that's an important point. You all are making the decision. Is there any information that's publicly available that the public could access to even get a head start or get a jump on the fact that this might occur?
Well, we're going to be required to publish. It's in the rulemaking that the Public Utility Commission put out. We're going to be required to publish these thresholds for that exact reason, so that, you know, it's not a game of Marco Polo trying to figure out when is PG&E going to be considering it, when is SCE going to be considering it. So pretty shortly here, we're going to be publishing, you know, what those thresholds are and communicating that.
So that'll be a different ballgame at that point than it is today, because today nobody knows.
Right.
At that point, if they want to follow those conditions,
Yep.
they can see that. Okay. There's no minimum amount of time that the power could be shut off, or excuse me, maximum amount of time. Depending on conditions, it could go on and on and on.
Yeah, the maximum amount of time, I couldn't quote you a time. It's like asking me to be able to predict what the weather outcome is going to do.
Is there a minimum that people could expect if it's going to get shut down?
It's different for different circuits. What I could tell you is I can only go back to the last 3 events that we had, which I don't want to mislead this group. That may not be indicative of what they're going to be in the future, but the last ones, we didn't have anybody off longer than 24 hours.
Okay.
In fact, most were on before the 24-hour mark.
Are customers incurring any cost during the time that the power is shut off?
I have not been advised that they are, but I would expect that they are experiencing some cost. You know, in which case they would file a claim with us, just like they would do for other outages.
You need to give your claims people some pats on the back, and especially the people that have to go out and knock on the doors and say, by the way, your power is going to get shut off.
Right.
Thank you for being here today.
Okay.
Tough job.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board? Seeing none, we just need a motion to receive and file. I'm sorry, is there any public comment on this item? Thought we had that. Yes, sir.
Yes, as part of my think tank, I actually create drones as well as a water saving and fire protection and solving problems. And the drone will actually have water built into the drone, and will go over to those remote areas and drop large amount of water on those wildfires in those areas. So I was hoping me and you guys could actually be supportive with me, and me being supportive with you, so we could solve those problems in that remote areas.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kern Tax has been participating in numerous coalitions to address this issue of reliability and resiliency in the system. The biggest problem California has is they refuse to protect the right-of-ways. Our forests have overgrown our transmission lines. We've seen pictures. Trees are, bend, leaves connect, they arc, things happen. We've all seen pictures in the Northwest where the right-of-ways of the utility towers are kept perfectly clean, so there's no trees overgrowing them and causing the problem. They also manage their forests, which we don't do in California. So this is a post-problem reaction that they have to go through that affects every consumer. If we protected our assets properly by maintaining right-of-ways as just one example, which the state refuses to do, we wouldn't be having these discussions now. So if you're going to go to the PUC, who only follows what state law is, we have to get back to the idea of protecting right-of-ways, managing our forests, since most of the transmission lines do run through forests, and that's where you have your biggest fires. It's kind of common sense, and I can make these comments on this subject because we're intervening at the PUC in a general rate case, but this isn't a general rate case situation. This affects all the public utilities. but only the public utilities, not the municipal utilities, which is kind of another question because they all use the grid. Thank you.
Thank you.
How much of these fires are actually considered arson? Do any of you guys know that?
Mr. Horn.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Fox. One of the things it's happened to me, and that is air. I need a concentrator, nebulizers, and everything. I'm not the only one in that situation. One of the ways to get around it is to get, and it's very inexpensive, about $20 or so, get a little nebulizer. And you can get them, the rectifiers, they go from 12 volt to 110, and you can put them on your car. I think that's something they ought to fly, or they ought to put in for emergency uses. And it does work. Of course, I got to hook up the car. Now I'm stuck. I have to keep the car because it's the only thing you can keep. So there is a downside to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any other public comments? Now we'll go to the board. Just need a motion to receive and file. I'm sorry. Mr. Alsop, did you punch in? Okay. County Council, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Couch. I wanted to follow up on your earlier question, and I'm not sure that we found all the information, but you asked for some kind of the legal background or why, what brought the PS to us. And from what I can tell, the California Public Utility Code in 1997 and 2000 enacted both sections 451 and 399.2, which give electric companies the authority to operate in a safe, reliable, efficient, and cost-efficient manner, which has been interpreted to allow for power shutoffs or power shutdowns. And then it seems that in roughly 2008, from what I can tell, that was kind of the first time that the de-energization happened through San Diego. Through the years, it was expanded. It included PG&E and Southern California Edison. As a result of the number of large wildfires in 2017, the Public Utility Commission in July of 2018 issued Resolution ESRB number 8, which is the formalization of the de-energization, the PSPS that kind of gets us to where we are right now. It formalized the plan. It created policies, regulations, including notifications and communications and the various things that have been explained to you today. It sets how the decision is made, when it can be made, the notification requirements. And then following that, in July of 18, there was a series of other legislation, one of which was referenced earlier by Mr. Alsop, Senate Bill 901, which was in August of 2018. And that provided money for fire prevention, including things such as forest thinning. It did make some changes to how the utilities can manage a liability around wildfires, such as issuing bonds and passing costs on to ratepayers. There were other legislative actions that what we just found is one, Senate Bill 2279, where there may be some grants available that would provide for reimbursement or grant money when there is a de-energization episode to recover some cost. So we'll look into that. But that's the legal kind of historical perspective of how we got to today's PSPS.
Thank you. Board?
Motion to receive and file.
Thank you. You have a motion, but no second.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Excuse me, Mr. Maggard, I know you voted yes on that. So I will let the record reflect that the vote is all ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the morning agenda. I just need a motion to adjourn to closed session. Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.